Good evening. How y'all doing? Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Rishatarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Rishatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gopremanandi. So I'd like to thank you all for coming, firstly. My name is Narsimha Kawach, and I have the good fortune of serving in ISKCON and trying to inspire devotees in deity worship. And it's quite an interesting service because I get to travel a lot and I get to meet lots of really nice devotees and I get to worship lots of really beautiful deities. I mean, everywhere I go in the world, I'm always, almost invariably asked to do deity worship. And I've addressed deities all around the world. It's pretty nice. You can come closer if you like. The wall won't fall over. You don't need to hold the wall up. It's interesting here is like in Sydney, people tend to sit back against the wall, but we're all friends, so we can get a bit closer. We're all part of Prabhupada's family, so no problem with that. So what I was thinking to do is just discuss a little bit, because I've been asked to talk about the importance of deity worship. And just to explain a little bit about how it's an integral part of the process of bhakti. It's not some optional thing. According to Jiva Goswami, actually, it's essential. It's essential that we all get involved in deity worship in some way or another. Whether we do it at home or we do it at the temple, and according to our capacity, because we've all got different capacities. Of course, if someone's a Brahmin initiated, everyone understands the concept of what a Brahmin is? Anyone not understand what a Brahmin means to be a Brahmin? No? Okay, so you're all good with that. So obviously, with Brahmin initiated devotees, they can go on the altar and things like that, and there's certain services they perform there. But for those who are not Brahmin initiated, there's so many other things you can do. Even just coming here and taking darshan of the deity and bowing down before the deity is deity worship. It's one of the 64 items of deity worship is to bow down. You bow down, you put your head on the ground, and you meditate that you're a servant of the deity. You meditate that your head is at the feet of the deity while you're bowing down. And Prabhupada, he used to tell the devotees, he actually told the devotees in France, that if you're anywhere in the temple and you hear the conch blow at the arati, if you bow down when you hear the conch blow, you get the benefit of offering the arati. Yeah? And it's understood, because of the absolute nature of devotional service, if you offer the arati or you observe the arati being offered, the benefit's the same. So even one may not be a Brahmin initiated devotee, still by participating in deity worship in whatever capacity you have, then you get so much benefit. So I just had a few bullet points here. This here is a publication I've been working on for more than 10 years now. It's called The Method of Worship for the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. This is the first draft of it. It's not going to come out black and white, it's going to come out colour. Well, not complete colour, like the sidebars will be sort of a magenta colour and the text will be black and white. But this is the new deity worship book for ISKCON. It's got all different types of graphics in it and stuff like that. And as you can probably notice, there's, we've got pages like this with different spreads of pictures and things. Can you all see that? Yeah. These are some lamps I took photos of in Abenteuer in Germany. They've got these really beautiful Radha Krishna deities there, a little bit smaller than Gopinath. Yeah, but and Gopinath's quite chubby, but the Radha Mada and Mahan are quite slender. Very, very sweet deities. And you can see there's still a few corrections and things going on in it. A little bit of work to be done yet, but it's getting there. I'm actually working on the index now, which I've never done that before. It's really painful. I think I'd almost like going to a dentist better, which I don't like going to the dentist. I find that really extremely challenging. Anyhow, so what I've been asked to do is speak a little bit on, or just give a bit of an overview on the importance of deity worship. Now, has anyone got an altar at home? They've got deities or pictures or anything like that at home where they're doing some sort of worship? So what I was thinking is like, what time do you normally speak till? I've got no idea. What time should I finish? Huh? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll speak for maybe 20, 25 minutes, and then we can do questions and answers and stuff like that. Is that okay? Does that work for all of you? Okay. Because it's kind of nice when it's, you get the opportunity to find out things you want to find out about. Okay. So we'll just start talking a little bit about this, and we'll start off by why perform deity worship? What do you think? Why should we perform deity worship? Any thoughts on that?
Because when we meditate, we need something to meditate on. So that's the reason.
Something?
When we meditate, so then we need some sort of picture or something to meditate upon.
Yeah. I'm not trying to pick on you here, but I think you need to be a little bit specific, because when you say something, because we see some people, they'll meditate on a candle, or some people will meditate on a crystal. That's the thing.
Something which we respect.
No, but some people might respect, the energy in the universe, or they might respect the sun. What's the difference? Well, you see what I'm getting at here? Something is impersonal, right? Because we are sentient beings. We are persons.
Yep.
Therefore, what do we meditate on?
It's like when you're a child, you have particular toys that you love.
Yeah.
And you look at them and you play with them and you give your attention
Right.
to them. And they become meaningful, and then you search for them. If they're lost, you become frantic. So
Right.
deity is something like that. You develop this unbelievable association with it that if it's not there, you actually start to panic that something is missing.
Okay, I'll address that a little bit in a minute. You're going to say something? A little bit loud, I'm a bit hard at hearing.
It's to invite yourself to worship at home, but in devotion, to cultivate your devotion to God at home, because God is spiritual, aloof, better than, beyond the material universe. So this is our link and connection to God.
Yeah.
Until we are God conscious, but until then we need to always be centered on God.
But you know what? God's beyond the material universe, so are you. You're just embodied right now. It says, asangahiya purusha. You can't come into contact with matter. You just can't. You're in a body, but you're not in contact with it. You're encased by it, but so the jiva can't come in touch. So getting back to the first point, which was very interesting, is that we are sentient beings. Means we are persons. And in order to develop that real consciousness of being a person, we need to cultivate relationships. This is the thing about people, is they have relationships. These cartels don't have a relationship with each other than they get banged together. Yeah. Right? They don't talk with each other. They don't, go out, in the evening, or they don't take prasad together or anything like that. Why? Because they're inanimate objects. Right? Whereas we're not inanimate. We may be in a body which is inanimate, but by the soul being there, it becomes animated. The soul is matter. The spirit is a person. And so in the same way, by cultivating a relationship with the Supreme Person, not only do we understand him, we also understand us. Because it's just like, it says, Krishna Swa Dhammapakari Dhamma Gyani Visa Kalanashti Dhammashe Puranako Dinoditaha. The Bhagavad Purana is talking about the Bhagavatam. It's as brilliant as the sun and has risen to dissipate the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali. So the analogy is given there that when the sun rises, just like, you won't experience it here because, there's always lights. But, if you go to India or somewhere like that and the power goes out, and there's no moon at night, it's pitch black. You can't see. You can put your hand like that and you can't see it, right? But as the sun starts to come up in the morning, you start to see. You can start to see things, you can make out things on the horizon, you can start to make out the shape of things. And as the sun comes up and up and up, you actually start to see in detail everything. So in the same way, as we cultivate our relationship with Krishna, the Supreme Person, that's the thing, the deity is not a statue. The deity is not a toy or anything like that. The deity is Krishna directly. And this is very clearly established in that nice story of Sakshi Gopal. Nityananda told to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the story of this deity that now resides in near Puri, in a place called Sakshi Gopal. And originally that deity resided in Vrindavan. And there was a young Brahmin, he was traveling around India going to all the places of pilgrimage with an old Brahmin. He'd met him on the way and he was serving him because he was older, And it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting thing in Indian culture is you'll find that still, I see it still happens, that young men will just instinctively serve older men, even if they don't know them. I saw that at the Sacred Sound retreat. Prabhupada Das, he came to the venue for the retreat, and there was no chair there. And one of the young Indian men who didn't know him, I know he didn't know him because he was from a different temple, he got up and gave him his chair. He just instinctively do that. So you see this young Brahmin, and this is actually culture. The younger man will serve. I even remember when I was a child, when we were traveling on public transport. If an older person got on the tram or the bus or whatever it was, young people just stood up and gave them a seat. School kids these days, they won't do it. I pay my fare. There's no culture because there's no, the leaders don't know what is the value of life. They don't know what they're supposed to do. Anyhow, so this young Brahmin, he met this older Brahmin. He was traveling with him and helping him, preparing his meals, looking after him, and washing his clothes, things like that. And the old Brahmin became very indebted to him. And he said, look, I want to repay you somehow. And he said, it's not necessary. He said, no, you've served me so nicely. I really feel I need to repay you. He said, what I'll do is I have a young daughter at home. She's a beautiful young girl, and she needs to get married. And I think you're a suitable person to marry her because you have good values. And so the old Brahmin, the young Brahmin kind of knew, the difficulty could be there because he had no money. This older Brahmin, he came from a situation where he's well-to-do. And he said, look, if you want to make this offer, then make the offer in front of the deity, Gopal, because then, it's been witnessed. So the Brahmin agreed, so he made the promise. So to cut a long story short, the old Brahmin went home. He told his wife and his son that he was going to give the daughter in marriage. His wife said, if you do that, I'll kill myself. Straight away, she didn't want it because he was poor. And people in India are often very conscious about the social standing and stuff like that. So then eventually the young Brahmin came to the village to claim his reward or whatever, however you look at it. And there was complications and finally got to the point where where he told the son of this old Brahmin, he said, but he promised in front of the deity. And so by the Lord's mystic potency, this the old Brahmin's son, he said, if you bring your deity as a witness, then I'll believe it. And the young Brahmin said, no problems, I'll do it. So he walked back to Vrindavan, from one side of India to the other. It's like 1,600 kilometres he walked. Can you imagine walking from Melbourne to Brisbane? No one would do it. So then he walked back to Vrindavan, he went and spoke to Gopal. And he explained, he said, my dear Lord, your Brahmin devotee, he made a promise in front of you. So to prove that his word is true, to prove that he's not a liar, you please come and be witness to this. And then Gopal, he spoke. He said, but I'm a deity. I can't walk across India. He said, my dear Lord, he says, you're not a statue. You're directly the son of Nanda Maharaj Krishna. And if you can talk, you can walk. So let's go. So then and he made this arrangement where he would walk, but the young Brahmin couldn't look back. And he said, but how will I know you're behind me? He said, because you'll hear the sound of my ankle bells. And each day you should cook for me and leave the food and I will eat it. So he did that. On the way he cooked for the deity every day. And he left it there and the deity took the offering. And he could hear the deity's ankle bells all day just walking behind him. And he never looked back. And at one point he got close to this village, Ramuna, and he couldn't hear the ankle bells anymore. And he started to think to himself, what should I do? And then finally he was overcome by temptation. And he turned around and looked back and Gopal was standing there. And then he was very close to Ramuna, so he ran and told all the people in the village that Gopal has come. And so that's why he's known as Sakshi Gopal, because Sakshi means the witness. He's the one who sees. So he came all that distance to witness what the old Brahmin had said. So one of the important points in this story is he says, Pratima nahi tumi sakshat brajendanandana. That my dear Lord, you're not a statue. You're directly the son of Nanda Maharaj Krishna. And this is, we see that in the lives of great devotees that they have these interactions with deities. There's another nice story of Raghunandan Thakur. He was, I won't tell the whole story, but he was just a young boy. And so strong was his faith that the deity was Krishna directly, that Krishna got down off the altar, sat down on the floor and ate the meal that he was offering. And he was only 5 years old. Very, very. There's actually the deity is in Ambika Kalna, I think it is. The deity is still holding his laddu in his hand. I'm not sure if it's the original laddu or they put the laddu in his hand, but he's still holding a laddu in his hand with a bite taken out of it. So this is a well-known deity. So there's many different stories like this. How devotees, because they have this faith that the deity is directly Krishna, then the deity interacts with them. So that's addressing your point. Then to address the point you raised then about how you become attached to different things as you're growing up. But ultimately they're just inanimate objects and they're material attachments. But the attachments we have to people should be much deeper. But the problem is that in this age what tends to happen is we love things and we use people. Where actually we should use things and love people. Like we have a car, we use the car, we drive from here to there, we look after it, but we just use it as a facility or a commodity. But what happens these days is people love their cars. I remember when I was a young fellow, there was a song by a well-known, at that time, very well-known band called Deep Purple. You heard of them, Vijay? And anyway, so they had this song, I can't remember what the song was called. And it was singing about his car. Yeah? And they were a heavy metal band, which is kind of the emotions they used to express sometimes were a little bit unusual for the type of band they were. Anyhow, he's singing about his car. It's like, nobody's going to fix my car. I'm going to take it for a drag. They're not going to do anything to my car. I love it. I need it. He's like, and people are like that with their cars. They become so attached to it. And if someone runs into their car, they'll get out and beat them to death practically. You scratched my car, I'm going to kill you. Hang on a minute, it's a car. It's just a piece of metal and plastic and glass. And this is a living entity. And you're going to beat them to death because they scratched your car. And that's what it's like. This whole world is just so topsy-turvy now. They don't actually understand the value of things in this world. So, but the problem is because of our conditioned nature, when we're interacting with a deity, because the Lord has agreed to descend in a form that we can interact with. Because Krishna, in his original spiritual form, we can't interact with that form. Because why? Because we're conditioned. We have material senses. We can't perceive spirit. We can see the effect of spirit. Just like we're looking at each other, we can see how we're all moving and breathing and doing whatever we do. That's the effect of spirit, but we don't actually see the spirit soul. We see the symptoms. It's just like, we don't see the air. But when the wind is blowing, you see the effect of the air or the symptoms of the air. You see things moving, but you don't actually see the air. But we can only understand its presence by the symptoms. So in the same way, we can only understand the soul's presence or the spirit soul's presence by symptoms. So the same is with Krishna. Just like, it's quite common, especially in India, you'll go to a certain place and you'll see them doing havan or fire yaga or homa. Yeah? Now, for the Brahman understands that the Lord is present there as the fire. The fire is understood to be the mouth of Vishnu, or the tongue of Vishnu. Yeah? And when you offer things in the fire, you chant swaha, and we understand that Krishna is taking those things, or whatever Vishnu form it is they call into the fire. But for most people, for the observers, they don't see that. They just see a fire and they see people throwing grains and ghee and chanting swaha, and all very grand and wonderful, but they don't really understand so much. They don't see Krishna or the Lord. And the same with, previous ages they had, Kritiya Jayato Vishnu, Tretiyam Yajhomakai, Dwapare Parajayayam, Kalatad Harikirtana. So in the first age, in the Krita Yuga or the Satya Yuga, the process was meditation. So, the sages, just like Valmiki, he sat down and meditated for, how long did he meditate for, do you know? 60,000 years. Can you imagine? Anyone here feel like doing that? Sit down, meditate without being distracted, without scratching yourself or having something to eat or going to the bathroom for 60,000 years. He meditated. We couldn't even do it for 60 seconds, let alone 60,000 years. And so, meditation is a very slow process. It takes a long, long time. But you can ultimately see the Lord. But in this age, it's not a very effective process. And then in the next stage, it was Yajito Makai. It was performing fire sacrifice. So the same thing. And we see, like, in those days, like, have you all seen fire sacrifices? Yeah? Usually they make the yagya kund, it might be made of bricks covered with cow dung or something like that. Or in these days, they have like a metal one. They bring in this aluminium or something like that. Very, doesn't, a few $100s it costs to make something like that. Back in the Treta Yuga, when they did yagya, the kund was made of gold, solid gold. All the spoons were made of solid gold. All the vessels they brought the ghee in, and they didn't just use like we might use 1 or 2 kgs of ghee because we don't want to use too much because it's really expensive. They used to use hundreds and thousands of liters. There's even a story in the Krishna book where Agni, he had indigestion because he'd been taking too much ghee and he couldn't digest it all. Thousands and thousands and thousands of liters of ghee he was taking in these fire yagas, and he wound up with indigestion. But now we're just like a few liters, maybe 2 liters maximum. So Kali Yuga is a very unfortunate age. Things have changed a lot. And then so everything was gold. All the implements were gold, not even silver. It was all gold. And you know what they did at the end of it? The Brahmins, they just walk off and leave it all there. And the Sudras would come and take it and store it and things like that. So the Brahmins would just leave it all. Now, if you drop your gold ring on somewhere, you'll be looking for it for days to try and find it, and it only costs a small amount. I mean, it's not even pure gold; it's only 9 carat. You'll be looking everywhere for it. So the value of things has changed a lot. Then in Dwapara Yuga, the process was deity worship. Now, deity worship is very, very interesting, and it's also it's important for this age. Even though we say that it says Kalatad Hari Kirtanat, that in the age of Kali, the Hari, the Kirtan of Hari, this is the process, and that's a fact. And it describes, Jiva Goswami, he describes in the Bhakti Sandarbha, I don't know the verse, it's quite a long verse, lots and lots of words, it's about 4 verses, really long ones too. But he basically describes that, he says, yes, it is true that it is the opinion of Srimad Bhagavatam that Diksha is not actually necessary in this age, that people can achieve emancipation simply by chanting Hare Krishna. But, and he goes on to explain, he says, insofar as we have experienced that everyone who approaches us for initiation, their minds are so contaminated by the modes of material nature that they're not peaceful. They can't sit down and chant Hare Krishna. Because you see, if you look at those who achieve perfection through the chanting of Hare Krishna, what examples do we have? Thakur Haridas. How many rounds did he chant every day? He used to chant 3 lakh. It's about 200 rounds a day. He used to chant a lot. He perfected himself through chanting Hare Krishna. Even to chant 1 lakh rounds. I've done it. I remember a few years ago I did it every day for Kartik. It was quite a challenge to do 64 rounds a day. It's not easy. So Jiva Goswami, he points out that that the people's minds are so contaminated. He says, therefore, at the point of initiation, they are obliged to engage in deity worship. It's not an option, they're obliged to engage in deity worship, because engaging in deity worship will help us to become purified, so we can actually get to the point of peacefully practicing the Yuga Dharma. Because right now, how many of us can just sit down, solid, chant 16 rounds undisturbed every day? It's a rare thing. We don't see it. There's always something going on, especially with all these electronic gadgets these days, phones and iPads and this thing and that thing and whatever's going on. We're chanting japa and like this, and playing with our phone or doing something or whatever. We get distracted. That's the nature of this age. Like the verse tomorrow, this is the verse for Bhagavatam class tomorrow. It says, Mandas Mandamatiyo Mandabhagya. Very unfortunate. Yeah? This age is very, very disturbed age. The whole atmosphere. I mean, gosh, you guys live in Sydney, you should know. I live in Murwillumbah, it's kind of peaceful there, But in Sydney, it's just like stuff, there's all this constant movement all the time, people whizzing up and down the street, and there's so many disturbed people, doing all sorts of, just like I went down to Coles here to buy some breakfast cereal, some puffies, and the lady said to the security guy, she says, there's some young boys, about 6 or 7 young boys just coming with a skateboard, go and watch them because they always steal things. That's the nature of this age, especially in the city, is people are just like, they don't know the value of life. They don't know what life is for. They think that life is about increasing their material possessions. But it's all finished at the moment of death. What's the value of that? You might struggle so hard, you might have a nice car, you might even have a private airplane and have a house in Sydney and one in Melbourne and one in Acapulco and one in Zurich and, all around the world you might have houses. But guess what? When you die, you don't take any of it with you. They don't understand what the aim of life is. The aim of life is to develop one's love of Godhead, to develop one's loving relationship with Krishna. And the process of deity worship opens us up to that. Because through deity worship, we're cultivating an active relationship. It's not passive, it's active. Because why? We're actually doing things for Krishna. We wake him up in the morning. You go on the altar, you wake the deity. That means you're the first person he sees in the day. You put him to bed at night. You're the last person he sees at night. You might offer him mangalati, offer him some sweets in the morning, dress him, bathe him. Throughout the day, there's so many activities you can do. And, you become more and more conscious of Krishna through this activity. Because it's explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that there's 5 incarnations of God, right? There's Para, which is his original form. Then there's Vyuha, the Chata Vyuha. There's Vaibhav. There's Vilas, which is the pastime incarnations. And then there's Archa, which is the Archa Vigraha. This is one of the authorized incarnations of Krishna. So, when we engage in deity worship, it helps us to engage, it really gives us this opportunity of connecting our conditioned nature, if you like, with Krishna. And I gave a similar discussion. I was down in Melbourne 2 weeks ago, and we had a similar discussion down in Melbourne. And I gave the example, it's a little bit like electricity. When you're engaged in deity worship, it's just like, say for instance, there's all these wires running through the building here, and they've got 240 volts going through them all. And it doesn't matter where you touch the wire. If you touch the wire at the light fitting, you touch the wire at the switch, you touch the wire at the switchboard out the front, or up the pole, it doesn't matter. You're going to get electrocuted no matter where you touch it. Yeah? You'll get that full force of that power. So in the same way, when we're engaged, and your whole body becomes electrified. Yeah? Your body's not a very good conductor, but it's not very good, it's kind of like medium. But the whole body becomes electrified, and what you find happens is all your muscles contract. And that's why when people, if they grab something that's electrified, what happens is the muscles close on it. So if you think something is electrified, what we used to do, because I grew up in the audio industry, is we used to touch it with the back of our hand, because what would happen is the body would just automatically close the muscle, so you're less chance of getting electrified. But if you touch it like that, even like that, your hand will close on it, and you're finished. But so your whole body becomes electrified by contacting something that's electrified. So in the same way, when you contact the deity, by engaging in service in deity, you become gradually spiritualized by that contact. And as it describes here, I was going to read from this, but I think we've talked enough. There's an interesting verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita where it says, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Mathura Vasa Srimatire Shariya Sevan. This is, I think it's like maybe the 6th or 7th chapter, maybe it's a little bit later, or 9th chapter, where Rupa Goswami, in the 6th and 7th chapter, I think it is, he's describing the 64 items of devotional service. And then he says, but of these of these 64, 5 are super excellent. And he says, association with devotees, sadhu sangha, nama kirtan, chanting the holy name, sadhu sangha nama kirtan, bhagavat shravan, studying the Bhagavatam, mathura vasa, residing in a holy place like a temple, or if you don't live in the temple, make your house a holy place. Make your house a place of pilgrimage. Turn it into the spiritual world. You put pictures of Vrindavan, Mayapur, Puri, whatever like that. Have bhajans playing all the time. Don't have television playing. Things like that. Just make it the spiritual world. And Srimatira Shariya Sevan, to worship the deity with faith and veneration. These are the 5 most potent forms of bhakti. And he goes on to explain that the power of these principles is very wonderful and difficult to understand. People just can't understand how it is by chanting Hare Krishna, for instance, people's lives are changed. Because that's all we've done. Before I came to ISKCON, I was a very degraded person. But just by chanting Hare Krishna, then my life has completely changed. And anyone, I'm sure you can all attest to that how much your life has changed since you've taken to the process of bhakti, because it reawakens the natural state of the living entity. And the same with deity worship. And he explains that he said, even without faith in them, a person who is offenseless can awaken their dormant love of Krishna simply by being a little connected, just a little connected, even if you don't have faith. So, I've seen here in Sydney, there used to be this gentleman, he had a shop up the road here. And it started out, we used to, because I used to live in Sydney years ago. And, actually it was North Sydney. Sydney Temple was in the Cross. Radha Gopinath used to be in the Cross, and Radha Gokulananda used to be here. And we used to do Sankirtan here, and I remember we used to go to this shop up the road. This man, he was a little bit friendly, and he would give the Sankirtan devotees free drinks. And then after some time he had no faith. He just, he was a little bit friendly. He liked the devotees. He somehow or other, I think Priyavrata actually convinced him to come down here and take darshan of Radha Gopinath. And he came down here, and but just gradually, he just didn't accept that, the deities. He didn't accept the process or anything like that. But gradually, just through the association of devotees, he just kept coming, and he started bringing gifts for the deities. And then, now he's just he chants 16 rounds every day. I don't think he lives in Sydney anymore. I think he lives up north now. But he's enthusiastic in the process of bhakti. But even without faith, just by having a little connection to the process of bhakti, one's dormant love of Krishna is reawakened. So that's the power of deity worship. It's quite an amazing process. And it's very important. This is the whole point of what I'm trying to get at here, is that everyone, whatever their capacity, should engage in deity worship in some way or another. You know, even if you can't do any service in the background, when you come every day, you know, bring a gift for the deities, bring some fruit, or you know, some grain, some rice, or whatever, a donation, whatever you can do, just bring something. When Prabhupada installed the deities in Los Angeles, in La Cienega Boulevard, they used to have this big brass bowl on the altar, just at the front of the altar. And he told the devotees, every day when you come, you bring a gift for the Lord. Don't come empty-handed. And so they had this big bowl there, and every day to be filled up with fruits and flowers, and you know. And I noticed when I was here before, there's a few bunches of flowers and stuff on the altar. So it's nice because you're coming to see the Supreme Person of God. You're coming to see the Supreme Proprietor. Everything you have is due to Him. Even the shirt on your back is only by His mercy. So if we're grateful, we reciprocate with Him. And of course, you know, as it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, you know, the topmost level is you give everything you have to Him. You think of Him always. You just surrender yourself completely to Krishna. But not necessarily we can all do that. So, you know, according to our capacity, we just surrender whatever we can. Maybe it's the fruit of our labor. Maybe it's our thoughts. Maybe it's, you know, whatever. You know, but every day, just try to do something for Krishna, and you'll get the benefit of it. Prabhupada, sometimes he would use the analogy that it's just like, you know, every day you put aside 1 cent, 1 cent, 1 cent, and it builds up. He says one day you have $100, then you can start a business. So Krishna consciousness is like that. Every day just do something, and do something, do something, and eventually you become a pure devotee. Never stop doing it. You just keep going forward. Even though it's a little bit, it might be a cent a day, and eventually it'll build up to $100. Yeah. So, I mean, I could talk for hours, but I'll finish it there. And if anyone's got any questions about what I've spoken or anything in relation to deity worship. Sorry? Oh. I've just finished doing the indexing for the introduction. Yeah? There's 3 more, and the introduction goes for, I'll tell you how many pages. I think it's about 9 pages, 10 pages. Yeah, the introduction's got 11 pages, right? This volume has got, that needs to be indexed. I'm not going to index the appendixes. 207 pages. So I've done 5% of this book, and there's another book. So, yeah, plugging away. If I can find someone who's a good indexer and a pujari, because the last person indexed it didn't know anything about deity worship. So it's just like, you know, you can't really index something if you don't know the topic. You know, so if I get someone who knows, find someone who knows how to index and also knows deity worship, because, you know, you've got to know what people want to search for. Like, you know, I mean, Archman, for instance, you know, someone who's a pujari knows that Archman is something that you can find out a lot about, or bog offerings is something, you know, there's a lot of information about bog offerings. So you want to know, you know, that there's six bog offerings during the day. There's the 7th one, which is the puja bog. You know, you've got the Balya bog, the Prata bog, the Raj bog, the Vaikalika bog, the Sanya bog, the Shayan bog. So you want to have information about, you know, all those different things, explanations. You know, none of that stuff was there in the index previously. You want to make sure that all this, you know, even different asanas, there's 7 different asanas the deity sits on. None of that information was in the index before. So getting this far for me is a great achievement. Because it was a bit of, the book was a bit of a mess before. There was stuff all over the place. And you had something on Archman here, something there, something on dressing over here, something on dressing over. So, you know, one place is saying the bell is this, one place is saying don't ring it below your waist, ring it, you know, up here. You know, but it's in different places. So what I've done with this is just, you know, and actually Mukunda Maharaj, he told me, he said, you should call this the first edition. even though it's the third iteration of the book, he said, call it the first edition because it's completely changed and you've given it a new title. So we're going to call it the first edition. But yeah, try to present it in a way that's much more cohesive and easy to understand, and with a lot more references from Prabhupada and different scriptures. Yeah. So if you pray to Gopinath and ask him to bless me, it'll come out sooner. Huh?
Give you a line for everyone who's done all
Yeah.
the work and stuff like that. There was somebody who came here regularly translated the Tamil or some other language, so they're around, you never know.
But indexing is a very specialized task. Very specialized. And you know, probably what I'm doing won't be perfectly done. But there's a verse that in the Bhagavatam, which is that it explains that even though imperfectly composed, because the intention is to glorify the Supreme Personality of God, then it's considered to be perfect. So I just do what I can. Get on the Google and find out, you know. Ask Google Guru, how do you do indexing, and read what it says, and I learn about it, you know. That's how I've done a lot of this book, is just Google it and find out. Before the internet was there, it was really difficult doing this sort of stuff. But now the internet is here, you just Google it, find out, you know, I want to do this with InDesign, how do I do it? And it just explains it, and it's great. So I've learnt a lot. Anything else? Your worship type questions?
I just have a couple of questions. You talked about materialism, people chasing houses and cars and whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the 1% of the world lives differently than the 99%. And we live in a world where we are committed to taking care of certain things. It could be your family, it could be your parents, it could be your spouse, your wife, your kids, etc. So you are committed to producing. Producing could be money, could be making a house. So it is important. You can't live and survive without it. That, I think, probably is materialism, but it is necessary. So how do you detach yourself from just trying to progress when your surrounding is progressing and you can't just take a step back? Your external factors are moving ahead.
Yeah. There's a few interesting slokas or comments from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in this regard. And basically he explains that whatever it is you have, whatever it is you do, if you connect it with Krishna, that's renunciation. But to reject things and not connecting with Krishna, that's false renunciation, because you don't actually understand that everything belongs to Krishna. So the idea is not to give up anything. Of course, sinful things we give up, you know, because that's just not human to behave like that. You know, we try to at least be human. But the idea is to understand that Krishna is the supreme proprietor. He says this in the Gita, Aham savasya prabhu matasavam pravartate, iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhavasma vidha, that I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds, everything that emanates from me. And the wise who perfectly know this, they engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. He doesn't say they give it up. He just says they understand that it comes from me. That ultimately, and as he says, that's from the 10th chapter of the Gita, one of the seed slokas, but at the end of the 5th chapter of the Gita, he says, Bhaktanam yagatapasam sarvaloka maheshram suridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim rishati. That one who understands that I am the bhakta, the enjoyer of all sacrifices and austerities, bhaktanam yagya tapasam, all yagyas and austerities, tapa, yeah? Sarva Loka Maheshram, that I'm the supreme proprietor of all planets and all the demigods and everyone who lives on these planets. I'm the proprietor, no one else. Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, and I'm the supreme, and he uses this word Surit. So, Hrit means like the heart, Su means, it's like a word that sort of not just amplifies it, but excites. I think Sri Dharma used that term, excites, the term it's a prefix to. So it means like the best well-wishing friend, someone who's really got your best interest at heart. That's Krishna. He's the only person who actually got your best interest at heart. But the person who knows that, he says, Gyatva mam. He says, thus knowing me, Gyatva mam, shantim richati, they attain peace. So if we can understand Krishna's position, then you're like, okay, you've got your family to maintain, but they're devotees of Krishna. Or you're trying to encourage them to become devotees of Krishna, or you're giving them Krishna prasad, or whatever it is. You're trying to connect them with Krishna. Therefore, whatever you're doing to maintain that connection is bhakti. It's not a mundane activity. As soon as you take the Krishna out of it, it becomes a mundane activity. So that's all you have to do. Prabhupada gave another interesting analogy. He said, everything in this material world is a zero. And he used the word jiro, because they don't have the Z sound in Bengali, he says jiro. And you say your big skyscraper buildings and your jumbo jets and all these things, they're just zeros. They add up to nothing. And if you take all these millions of zeros and you put them together, what do you have? Zero. That's all you've got is a big zero. But if you take the one, Krishna, and you put it in front of all these zeros, what do you have? Hundreds and millions and billions, a big number. So that's the trick of Krishna consciousness, is to learn how to connect everything to Krishna. And that's bhakti. Just make the connection to Krishna, that's bhakti. Understand that everything is His. Understand that we're only doing these things for Him, and that's bhakti. Does that answer? You had a second question?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah?
When you're serving deities, specifically at home, what should be our mood? I say this because I've got Gaurathai deities at home, and when I'm dressing them or when I'm serving them, this motherly instinct takes over. For example, if I'm dressing them, I check the water temperature to make sure if it's cold or hot. Is that right, or is it being too fanatic?
Do you, when you have a shower, right, do you just turn the hot water on and just walk in? Don't worry about whether it's hot or cold or whatever, just walk in? Do you? Why not?
So if it's burnt or if it's cold.
Yeah, well, what's wrong with that? That's just common sense, isn't it? So it's the same. And why do you do that?
Make sure.
Or like, this is your little girl here? So when she's having a shower, what do you do?
I check the water temperature.
Why?
I don't want to burn her.
That's right. Why?
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So the same thing, we're trying to develop a loving relationship with Krishna. So when Krishna's bathing or Gaurathai's bathing, and we just put the pot under the tap, just get whatever water comes out and just dump it on their heads, what's that? That's impersonalism, because we just think he's a statue. But no, because we understand he's a person. He's directly present before us as a deity, and we want to cultivate a relationship, a loving relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we take notice of these details, and Prabhupada explained, attention to detail is a sign of love. So it's not necessarily a motherly instinct, because that's not really our relationship. Our relationship with the Lord is one of servant. At least, in the stage of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, it's a very clearly defined thing. As we advance, into higher and higher stages of Bhakti, then a tangible, real relationship that's different from being a servant may manifest. Can't say. But in the stage of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the relationship is one of servant. And the mood of worship is Aishvarya. Because, see, what we need to do is understand that we're deeply contaminated. Not just a little bit, not just like, you're just washing your clothes and there's a little bit of, stain, like maybe a bit of dirt on. No, it's like the deepest, deep turmeric stain you could ever imagine, and just you try to get turmeric out, it takes a lot of work to get that stain out. And you put the washing powder on, it goes purple. And you've got to scrub and scrub and scrub and scrub it. It takes days to get turmeric stains out. So the turmeric stain is nothing compared to our conditioning. And the process of deity worship is about removing this conditioning. It's about getting this conditioning. Because As long as that conditioning is there, as long as you think you're the body, as long as you think you're the controller and enjoyer, you will never understand your relationship with Krishna. Not possible. Because we have this false identification. I am this body, I am the controller, I am the enjoyer. And that, as we become purified, that becomes more and more subtle, but it's still there until we're completely pure. So the mood of worship is that this dasanu, that I'm just a servant, a servant, a servant. And the relationship is one of Aishvarya, is awe and reverence. I'm the servant, he's the master. And so therefore we try to base everything we do around his needs. In the home, like in the temple, it's all based around the service of the deity. Like the schedule is very much around his needs. It's the same time every day, etc., etc. And it's called like Raj Seva. It's like kingly worship. Or worshiping the Lord is like you would worship a king. There's actually an interesting video. I haven't watched it yet. I got it when I was in the UK last, and it's Queen Elizabeth's 80th anniversary. Oh, maybe it was her 80th birthday. I think she's just had her 80th anniversary. It might have been her 80th birthday. But it just shows how she's worshipped, or not worshipped, but how she's served in the palace. And it's really impressive. Like even the quality of materials they're using, like all the silverware and this, it's like pristine. Everything's in perfect condition. They have this system there, like they have all these long, in Buckingham Palace, they have these long, big, grand passageways with, like the passageway is like as wide as the temple. It just goes on for hundreds of feet. And they have this light system that, like, with the servants, if they're coming from the side and they see the red light on, it means the Queen's walking down the passageway, so they can't come into the passageway. They have to wait till the light's green, then they go to the passageway, but the Queen can't see the lights. But I've had experiences where we've been at the Janmashtami festival and bringing the deity from the place where it was abhisheked into the temple, back into the temple room, put on, so they can get dressed and go on the altar. And then, like, devotees just been there, standing there, talking there, and like the deity's standing right there, and they just take no notice whatsoever that the deity's behind them. And then you say, "Hey, Bob, Radha and Krishna coming through. What do you want?" It's like there's something missing there, But the idea is like, I remember Krishna Chaitra Maharaj years ago telling me a story about, he had seen this video about, it was some Jewish people, and the Torah is their scripture. It's like their version of the Bhagavatam, I guess. And just the joy and the reverence they were demonstrating when the Torah was coming from the place where it's kept into their sort of presence. They were just dancing. They were just so joyful that the Torah was there. And we see, like some people do demonstrate the proper devotion. So it's just a matter of cultivating the right relationship. But in the home environment, then the worship is largely based around the needs of the family. So you might not necessarily maintain such a strict schedule, for instance. Especially, like in sometimes in different situations that, devotees may work shift work, for instance. So you're not necessarily going to have Mangalarti at the same time every day. Children come home from school, they want to eat. You're not going to tell them, "Oh, sorry, you can't eat till 6 o'clock because the deity hasn't been offered." You have to offer it straight away, otherwise they're eating bhoga. So the idea is to try to center their lives around the deities. Just encourage them in deity worship. I remember speaking to a devotee years ago, and they were in the Gurukul, and whenever they misbehave, which kids just do, that's just the nature of kids. They're just mischievous. They kind of got their intelligence is exploring things, and sometimes they do things which are not so appropriate. And so sometimes the children, they need to punish the children. So what they used to do, the teachers in the Gurukul, is every time the children did something wrong, guess what they'd ask them to do? No, chant one round. So now what's happened, at least there's one devotee I was talking to, is they see japa as punishment. So they can't chant japa. So the idea is to make it fun, make it an adventure, make it something they're exploring and learning about. You have to make it attractive for the kids so that but not one trap that a lot of parents fall into is they give young children deities. So the problem with this is then the children become familiar with the deity. I remember speaking to one young girl a number of years ago. She had a little Gopal deity. And, I like to try to encourage the kids in their deity. She was too young. She was way too young. She was only about 7 years old. And, and the thing is they just don't understand that this is God. They don't understand the whole Aishwarya thing. And so I was asking, what she does with the deity and this thing, that thing, and she was talking about what she was doing. She said, but sometimes he's really naughty. I said, what do you mean he's naughty? And he says he likes to play in the mud. So it means what she's doing is she's playing in the mud with her deity. So then she develops the whole, the child's developed the whole incorrect concept of deity worship. So it's very important that we impress upon the children the right concept. So teach them how to bow down before the deity, teach them how to make garlands, teach them how to make ghee wicks and stuff like that. But always try to imbibe this mood of Aishwarya, so they understand that this is God, this is the Supreme Person of God, and I'm His servant. It's a very, very important aspect of deity worship. You had another question? Okay, that's no worries.
With deities, are there certain people that can only make deities, or can you see like a deity in a piece of wood and use that as a deity?
Yeah, it used to be like that. That they had these people called Silpis, and they were the only people who would make deities because they actually learnt from their guru. They had a whole parampara, and they would, their guru would give them the mantras that were required to make the deity. Because when they make deities, before they make the deity, they actually, especially in some places like in South India, when they made Nrsimhadev in Mayapur, they actually got a proper, stapati to make the deity, and they have all this like Shastric tradition. It's like what they call a Stala Purana, which is kind of like a local Purana. And in these Shastras, it described the type of stone that they had to use. And it wasn't just like, what the stone looked like. They had to tap the stone. I can't remember, I think it was 7 places, and the stone had to make a certain type of sound. So there's a whole, so this Nrsimhadev, they found a stone like that, and they made him of that. And they have their parampara, they're trained and all that. And even when they made this deity of Nrsimhadev for Mayapur, is a very interesting form. It's not just an ordinary form of Nrsimhadev, and not just an ordinary Ugra Nrsimha. Ugra means like angry Nrsimha. That's when he's really annoyed with Hiranyakashipu. But the form they made in Mayapur is called Sthana Ugra Nrsimha. So Sthana means the column. That's just when he's burst out of the column, and you see his legs are bent, and his hands like this, and he's looking for Hiranyakashipu. He's, where is that rascal? I'm going to kill him. He was so angry that the Stapati, he didn't want to do it. He was afraid. He thought, no, this is too dangerous, to make this deity. Because they actually understood what deities are and the power of deities. But then, so he went and saw his guru. And he explained to him that these people, they wanted me to make this deity, and the guru asked him who it was. He said, it's ISKCON. And he said, which ISKCON? He said, ISKCON in Mayapur. He said, well, that's all right. He'll take the mood of Lord Chaitanya, so he'll be peaceful. That's okay. But nowadays you find, especially not so much in South India, but more in North India, it's just business. And you'll see, like, if you have a look at some of these deities in the shop there, they're not very well made. They're very crude. It's just a business thing now. And even the quality of the metal, like, if you polish them the regular way, then they start to get pitting and pieces of metal are coming out and stuff like that. So many temples now, they're having trouble with their deities. They've been polishing them now for, like, one temple's been polishing their deities since 1975. So that means 43 years they've been polishing the deity, and they've really got some major corrosion. And then we see, like, there's certain deities of Brajanab, who was Krishna's grandson, made. Like most of the major deities in Jaipur, Govindaji, Gopinath, Madan Mahani carved. They're very simple. They're very simple. If you look at them in the hand, it's just like, just a blob with a hole through it. But yeah, it used to be there was like a whole tradition, and that only certain people would make the deities, but now it's not like that. In the south it's still like that, but not in the north.
So one can make their own deity.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look at Jagannath in Berkeley, he was carved by Shamasundar. So, yeah. I mean, you can. The deities, the first Panchatattva deities in Hawaii might have been made by, I'm not sure, but maybe Gaurasundar made those out of paper mache. And then they replaced them with marble deities now, but originally they made of paper mache. We used to have in Adelaide, we used to have these, so beautiful they were, these Gopinath deities. They were made of fiberglass. And after a few years of worshipping, because it gets quite hot in Adelaide, so in the summertime, the deities, the ankles would start to go soft, and the deities would, their hands always, they start leaning forward. And all the devotees, they thought that was the devotional ecstasies of Lord Chaitanya, because they liked the kirtans there so much, but it was actually just the resin was perishing. Yeah. No, Tulsi is a devotee of Krishna. But then, as it mentions, in Lord Shiva mentions to Parvati, he says, Aradhanam sarvesham, Vishnu aradhanam param, tasmat paratam devi, tariyanam samacharam. That best of all types of worship is worship of Lord Vishnu. But better than worship of Lord Vishnu is to worship those who are connected to Lord Vishnu. So, in a sense, you could say that worship of Tulsi is greater than worship of Krishna, because she's a devotee of Krishna. But so what we do, the best way to worship Tulsi is to offer her to Krishna, because that's what her life is, just dedicated to Krishna's service. So then, that's our goal, is also just to dedicate our life exclusively to Krishna's service, nothing else. So you raised quite a few interesting points there. One of the first things you were saying is that the demigods are pure devotees. So, I mean, why do you think they're pure devotees?
I assume because the Shiva was meant here for them to be so allocated, they must have done some devotion.
Yeah, but Shiva's a different category from all the others. He's different completely. You can't equate him. He has his own tattva. Yeah, he's a complete tattva all on his own, because he's It says, Chiram yata didibikara vishesha yoga sanjayate nahita pritagashti heto yashambhutam api tata samapaiti karyad govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. This is just as milk is transferred into yogurt by the action of acid, and the result is nothing but milk, but you can't make milk from it. So in the same way, Lord Shiva is a transformation of Vishnu for the work of destruction. The Devatas aren't like that. The Devatas are what they call Karma Mishra Bhaktas. It means that they're devotees. There's no doubt they're devotees. But their devotion is mixed with karma. They want material benefit. You know, like Indra, you know. I mean, you just look at Indra's history, you know, he's got himself in trouble so many times through his material desires. Our Brahma in this universe, he's also quite a rare soul. He's a very, very elevated soul. But generally you find most of the Devatas, they're very materialistic. But they're also great devotees, but they have really, you know, because they're very powerful people. You know, I mean, you know, look at Lord Brahma, for instance, just to give you an idea of the power of this person. It's like he hears the Gayatri mantra, the Brahma Gayatri mantra. It's a very simple thing. It says, Om Bhuva Swaha Tat Sabatur. It's describing the Tat Sabatur. There's the sun, Varanyang, and the three levels of planets. Right? He hears that, and from that, he creates the material universe. That's a pretty intelligent and powerful person. Way beyond our, I mean, you know, if you hear that mantra, what can you do? Not much. You know, at least I can't anyhow. So, you know, he's quite a powerful person. And same with the Devatas, you know, like Lord Indra, you know, it's because of Lord Indra, he controls the thunder and the rain and all that sort of stuff. You know, what's his name? Vayu controls the wind. And Varuna controls the oceans. Very, very powerful persons. But along with powerful being the powerful quality, the powerful nature, they have powerful desires as well, but also that they're powerful devotees, but they're not pure devotees. Then the second kind of category, I guess, if you like, of what you were talking about is, you know, you were talking about, you know, people who are rich and they attribute that to their God, and people who are poor, you know, they've got their God. You can't really equate material facility with devotion, because, you know, a devotee, you know, there's an interesting prayer where Radharani, she prays to Lord Krishna and says, you know, that you can love me in your embrace, or you can trample me under your feet. I don't really mind. You're just a debauchee. You can do whatever you want to. I don't mind. That's pure, unalloyed devotion. It means you don't really care what comes as long as I can serve you. And that's the difference, because the other people, it's like, you know, you're from India? Okay. But in Mumbai, there's a fairly well-known temple of Hanuman. And every Thursday, you'll see these huge lines outside the temple, people going there and asking Hanuman for benedictions. But basically, they never ask Hanuman for pure devotion to him. I want a car, I want a house, I want piles of money, I want to become a famous movie star. It's all about themselves. It's just material. And the thing is, like, you know, even with Lord Shiva, he has one of his names, I think the name is Ashutosh, which means that he very easily satisfies his the devotees' desires. But they just want material desires. What's the use of that? Because it's temporary. You can have more money than what's that guy's name? Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, that guy's got, you know, money coming out of his ear holes. He's got lots and lots of money. You can have more money than him. But when you die, how much are you taking with you? How much you got in the bank? It doesn't go with you. It stays here. But if you have devotion for Krishna, that's eternal. That never goes away. You know, so it doesn't matter what material facility you've got. It's not going to help you in your sort of journey towards becoming purified. It's not going to help you become, you know, to realize your actual self. So all these people, they're praying for material benedictions, and all it's doing is getting them caught up deeper and deeper in the cycle of karma. That's all it's doing. So, they need to understand what is the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to understand I'm a spirit soul. What is the function of that spirit soul? What is the nature of that spirit soul? Jivera Surupahoy, Krishna Nityadas. The spirit soul is a servant of Krishna. So that's what the process of bhakti is about, is understanding I'm Krishna's servant and my life is meant for his satisfaction. No other purpose than that. So people, they worship the devatas, they become so wealthy. So what? The only reason that concerns us is because we want that. We want to have that money. Why do you want to have that money? Because I can have a better life. But it's all temporary. And the fact of it is, we have our karma, and it's never going to get any better than it's meant to be. I've seen my brother, for instance. He worked so hard, unbelievably hard, to become successful and wealthy and stuff like that. And he got a little bit, but now he's working in a gas station. He had a BMW, he had a 4-wheel drive, he had this, he had that, nice house in Brisbane and stuff like that. Now he's working in a gas station just to make ends meet. So it's all down to your karma, and you can't change it. You can change it by surrendering to Krishna, because serving Krishna is beyond karma. As long as you try to do something in the material world, you're working in the cycle of karma, and you're accruing more karma. But the goal is, and I was reading the Nectar of Devotion yesterday. I was talking about how the devotionals, because there's three causes of sinful activities. There's ignorance, there's sinful activities, and sinful desires. And the process of bhakti is the only thing that can destroy all three of them. Sometimes you do prayaschitta, it will overcome some things, and atonement and stuff like that. It will overcome different things, but bhakti is the only thing that will overcome all three of these things. So, and as it describes in the second canto of the Bhagavatam, it says, whether you're full of material desires, without material desires, you want liberation, just worship Krishna. Because he'll achieve what you want. But the other way, you won't achieve it. And if you do achieve something, it only comes from Krishna anyhow, and it's temporary. So an intelligent person worships Krishna. Yeah. But then it's not material. If you connect it to Krishna, it's no longer material. It becomes spiritual. It's just like this building, Anyone comes in here, they look at this building, they think it's just bricks and mortar and plaster and this and that, same as any other building. But no, this is a transcendental world because Krishna's here. Everything on the altar, the fans, all the things we use for worshipping deity, the seat he sits on, the bed he lies on, the arti paraphernalia, they're all expansions of Lord Balaram. Because of that, Balaram takes up that service mood to Krishna. So, because it's connected with Krishna, it's different. But it takes a transcendentalist to see that. It's not material. Anything else? Yeah.
So you're living in a remote location from...
Sorry?
If you're living in a remote location from the things that you have a relationship with, especially...
So I'm not quite hearing you.
Okay. So if you're living in a remote location, away from physical...
Oh yeah, remote location, yeah, sorry, I could not quite understand that, yeah.
Yeah. How would you go about the authority of deities and still suffice?
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada used to encourage devotees not to have deities at home, especially if they lived near the temple. He wanted them to come and get involved in temple worship. Because we see, over the years, I've seen many temples where they're struggling to maintain the standard of worship. And I'm not saying it's the only reason, but one of the factors that contributes to that is devotees having deities at home, and therefore they have a commitment at home. Because Prabhupada also says, he explains that verse from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Sri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana. So Nitya means daily or regularly. So it means like every day we need to do deity worship if we have deities at home. It's not like once a week or a month. Every day, same thing. You got to, wake the deities, bathe the deities, dress the deities, feed the deities. So, generally speaking, especially in this day and age, as it's becoming more and more difficult just to maintain a basic standard of living, having deities at home is not so practical. Whereas if you have a picture altar, then there's no obligation of worship. So like whenever you can, you offer them something. You try it at least once a day. You offer them arti, you can have a small kirtan, But some days you just can't do it, that's okay. There's no reaction. But if you have a deity and you don't do regular worship, then that's considered to be seva aparad. So picture altar is a very practical solution. I mean, I'm the minister of deity worship in ISKCON, so I've got responsibility all over the world. But nonetheless, I don't have deities. I have a picture altar. Actually, we've got 2 picture altars. We've got one in the northeast corner and one in the center of the house. So, okay. So, thank you all very much. I'm here for the next I leave on Monday. So, if anyone wants to, find out more about deity worship, ask a few questions, I'm always ready and willing and able. Thank you very much to the Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhakti ki.
Krishna Krishna